Hey, oh, Todd's here.
Hi.
Good to see you, Todd.
Hi,
Hey,
Todd.
how's it going?
Great.
Fine. Good.
Since this is a porch talk, I'm gonna actually go out on my porch.
Awesome.
Great idea.
Okay. Welcome. This is a project of Rolling Pepperoni. Rolling Pepperoni is based in Pittsburgh. It's a savory bakery that focuses on uniting urban and rural Appalachian communities. To that end, we make pepperoni rolls, and on the wrapper of the pepperoni rolls, we share different stories of people talking about Appalachia and what community and their practice within the community means to them. Today on the call, there are two story coordinators that I would like to introduce. Jacqueline Sternick is a story coordinator of Rolling Pepperoni. Jacqueline, do you want to say hi?
Hi, everyone. Happy to see you here, and thanks for the introduction, Kat.
Also on the call is Felicia Cooper, another story coordinator of Rolling Pepperoni. Felicia will be leading the interview with Todd today, and I will pass the mic over to her and let her begin and introduce Todd.
Awesome. So yeah, can everybody hear me okay? So without further ado, just a little introduction as to who you are.
Yeah, thanks for having me join in today. My name is Todd McCormick, and I work for Ascend, the climbing gym down in the south side of Pittsburgh, and I manage our retail shop, and I'm also our outdoor programs coordinator, which we're not currently running any trips right now, but what that means when we are running trips is that we do guided climbing trips at some classic Appalachian spots like Cooper's Rock outside of Morgantown, West Virginia.
Just gonna say, Todd created an interactive map in an interview with Felicia last year of the best climbing spots in Appalachia, and I will link the map in the chat.
Awesome. Yeah, Todd's top 12 was definitely one of my favorite things that we got to do last year. He made a whole interactive map and really shared just like why you love the outdoors. So with that in mind, where are you from? Where did you learn to love the outdoors, Todd?
So I grew up in central PA, about an hour east of State College, Pennsylvania, right along the Susquehanna River in a small town called Danville. Most people aren't very familiar with Danville, but if they are, it's probably because there's a really big hospital there called Geisinger. So yeah, I grew up in Danville, moved to Pittsburgh for undergrad, was here for 5 years, moved to Kentucky. I lived in Lexington, Kentucky. Shout out to some of my Lexington friends. I saw Andrew Denmark join the call. What's up, Andrew? So I lived in Lexington for 5 years, and then I moved back to Pittsburgh in 2015, and I've been back here for 5 years.
Oh, wow. So in those 5 years, what do you notice about Pittsburgh that's changed versus what's changed in Danville?
Well, man, that's a good question. There's so much. Danville, let me start there, just because there's a lot less going on there. So Danville is a small town, like I said, in like central PA. And when I grew up there, I mean, I grew up as a Boy Scout, and I grew up fishing with my dad and spending a lot of time outdoors with my family and also with the Scouts. But now there's a really awesome network of trails in Danville. So there's some really good trail running. There's some really good like single track mountain biking in Danville that didn't exist when I lived there as a kid. I think you kind of see the same thing happening in Pittsburgh as well. Like when I was here as an undergrad, I mean, certainly like, you know, obviously Frick Park existed, but I don't know that people used Frick Park to the extent that they do now with like single track mountain biking and trail running. And I mean, maybe they did, and I just wasn't as plugged into the scene back then as I am now. But it just seems like stuff gets utilized so much more, and there's definitely some trail building that has happened. I've definitely noticed some new trails happening, like in Frick Park in the past 5 years since I've lived here. So those have been super fun to explore and to get to know. But yeah, I think that's kind of what I've noticed, is just that the utilization has gone way up.
Mm-hmm. That's great to hear. Have you noticed that more so with everyone having to be cooped up inside all day?
Yeah. Like I said at the beginning of the call, I live like a quarter of a mile from Shenley Park. And I try to get out and walk around my neighborhood, which inevitably leads me to Shenley Park. And I've been walking a lot more than I was before, which has been kind of cool on the one hand, because I've been noticing way more just small things, like there's a house in my neighborhood that I haven't noticed before, and it's a really cute house, or like there's a nice tree down the street that's blooming, and I've really been taking the time to like stop and smell the roses, so to speak. And that's been really nice. But yeah, the utilization in Shenley Park has definitely been pretty high, unless you go when the weather is not so great, or go maybe earlier in the morning, which I'm not much of a morning person. So for me, my walks tend to be like around noon or 3 or 4, and there's definitely a lot more people in Shenley Park around those times of the day.
Oh, wow. So are you noticing anything else? Like, how is your community responding to this, right? Whether that means like your Squirrel Hill community, your rock climbing community, like how is everybody?
I think everyone is well. Everyone that I know is well. But the way I'll answer the climbing community question first, though, the way that the climbing community has been responding, I'm on the board of the Southwest PA Climbers Coalition, and we had a virtual board meeting on April 1st, and one of the things that we were discussing was, should we put out a message to the public about climbing outdoors? And ultimately, we decided that we should. There was a lot of talk that night about leading by example, and maybe trying to practice not climbing outdoors during this time. And that was for two main reasons. One is, as hopefully everyone knows, climbing is an inherently dangerous sport. And certainly, like, we take many precautions to minimize the risks of climbing, but it's still dangerous. And you can, I've certainly rolled my ankle several times, knock on wood. I've never broken a bone climbing or had a more serious climbing injury, but I've rolled my ankle. I've had visits to the ER from climbing. And so one of the reasons that we're sort of encouraging people to not climb outside right now is because if you do injure yourself and you need to go to the hospital, you're potentially, taking hospital staff and hospital rooms or equipment or whatever away from other people that might be needing the hospital. And then you're also too, like, you're maybe entering an environment where you could contract coronavirus, and then when you do get out of the hospital from your sprained ankle or whatever, you might bring it back into your community. So that's the one of the two main reasons that we've been encouraging people to not climb outside right now. And the other is just sort of a crowding issue. a couple of weeks ago, like kind of the end of March, lots of people started to get laid off, and to most climbers, they were like, cool, like I'm gonna go climb now. And we saw places like Moab get hit really hard, and Joshua Tree, some of the like most iconic places in the country got hit really hard. And when I say they, I mean like the National Park Service has closed down areas like that. And when big areas get closed down, I think that what happens is that the problem just gets shifted from the big nationally known areas to the smaller local areas. And so, like there are certainly lots of good climbing spots within an hour or so of Pittsburgh. But as places like even the New River Gorge put out a message encouraging people to not come to West Virginia, because West Virginia was one of the last states to have a documented case of the coronavirus. But yeah, like, okay, like I love climbing in the New, so if I'm not going to climb in the New, then I guess I'll go to a local spot that's around here. And so we just saw this crowding issue, and I didn't see it firsthand per se because I have not been climbing outside, but presumably you could imagine that this crowding issue just gets shifted to more local areas. So the second part of the reason why we're encouraging people to not climb outside right now is because we don't want crowded crags, and we also just don't know, like, if touch hardware on a climb. I don't know who else has touched it. I don't know who's going to go there tomorrow and climb on that route. Maybe I'm asymptomatic and I touch some hardware and someone touches it later today or tomorrow, and we just don't know. And because there are these unknowns, it seems like maybe the best call right now is just to find another way to keep yourself busy, which is what I've been doing with my walks around my neighborhood.
Yeah, and that touches on something that I really wanted to ask you about, which is like, okay, if I go to a state park, even in my small town where I live right now, and I go to a state park, it's super crowded, So how do you have any advice for navigating crowded outdoor spaces, or alternatively, how to stay safe when you're outside alone?
Well, I'd say maybe going outside alone right now is probably not the greatest decision in my opinion. If you do go outside alone, I'd say just keep whatever activities you're doing pretty safe, like walking or hiking.
Yeah.
Like keep the risk low, why not? And in terms of like avoiding crowded spaces, I think just be creative about where you're going and what you're doing. Like even though Shenley Park is a quarter of a mile, like I have shifted if I'm going to go for a walk in Shenley, I've shifted like what trails I walk on or what time I go, so that I'm avoiding the times when I know that it'll be more crowded. And also I'm just trying to be very cognizant of like who else is on the trail. I was hiking in Shenley the other day with my girlfriend Kate, and we were on one of the more main trails that's pretty wide, and there were a lot of people on it, but we changed our pace at certain times so that, like, if we saw a big crowd coming, we would maybe just like wait off to the side and let the crowd pass or whatever, So we're like, I guess in a sense, being a little bit like, whereas before it was like, I want to hike this pace and I want to cover this many miles. Now we're trying to kind of like forget about all that and just enjoy being outside and try to forget about how many miles we're covering or what pace we're going. But yeah, like I was saying, we were on kind of a main trail, and we were talking about, should we go down and get on this other trail that had way fewer users on it? But then we started seeing like 2 or 3 people on it here and there. And because it was one of the trails that wasn't one of the main trails, it was way more tight. So being on that trail, I felt like was a little bit riskier because it's a smaller, tighter trail, you're kind of forced to get closer to the other people that are using it, even though there were only like 2 or 3 other people on it. So I sort of felt like I could maintain the 6-foot recommendation a little bit better on the wider trails, and just keep myself like pretty visible, and yeah, try to forget about pace and distance and time and all that, and just try to fit in where there's space for me.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know people are in the chat saying how much they've enjoyed taking the time to smell the roses and taking the time to be in nature. And I think of it right now as like a very healing experience to be a part of nature, right? You can kind of almost like see them as like small gifts of joy or pleasure, in addition to the peace that comes with nature. Yeah.
Yeah, and let me just say one thing on that. Because I climb a lot, I have a lot of friends that live all over the country, and some of my good friends from Kentucky have been posting these pictures of hikes that they've been going on, and I saw one recently of a crag that's pretty popular down in Kentucky, and my friend posted a picture of a plant that's growing at the base of a route, a really popular climbing route. And I just thought that was kind of unique because, any other year that route would certainly have people that are climbing on it right now and throwing their rope down at the base of the route, and that plant wouldn't be growing right now. So I thought that was kind of a cool post to see a plant, at the base of a popular route that like you probably wouldn't ever see if climbers, had continued to climb on that route the way that we have been for the past 20 or so years.
Yeah, and I think that speaks to a larger sense of environmental impact that this is having, right? With fewer cars on the road, we're seeing like less pollution. Well, great. So we're just talking about kind of large-scale environmental impact of this virus with decreased traffic and decreased tourism, decreased air traffic even. I was wondering if you had any opinions or thoughts on that, on what this means for the larger scope of our environment.
Well, I'm certainly not an environmental expert, but like last night, Kate and I were walking home from the grocery store, and we were just commenting about how the stars seemed so much brighter. Maybe they would have been anyways, but maybe not. I mean, it's kind of nice to think that that like on the walk home in the middle of a very urban, Pittsburgh, seeing the bright stars and looking at Orion, and I'm not sure what was to the right of Orion, but it was something super bright, maybe a planet. I don't know. But yeah, it was beautiful, and we really, had a chance to just enjoy that and see that brightness in the stars, which is kind of something that like I was used to growing up as a kid because I grew up in a rural part of Pennsylvania, but like cloudy skies are common in Pittsburgh. So it was nice last night getting to see that. And I don't know about the long-term effects, but right now I certainly have been enjoying just like spending time locally. I've been hiking in parts of Shenley that I've never hiked in before, and it's funny because it might only be like 100 yards from a road or something like that, but I'm getting off the beaten path a little bit and just seeing, a view of the city from a slightly different vantage point, from the top of a different hill that I've never been to the top of before. And I've been really enjoying that. And maybe in the future, once we all get past this, we'll maybe keep like a little piece of that, just like enjoying what's really close to us. It's crazy to think that this is my second time living in Pittsburgh again for 5 years, but it's crazy to think that there are places like a half a mile from my house, now that I'm doing all these walks, that I haven't really fully experienced. And So in the future, I think that I would like to continue that and try to really soak in what is immediate right around me.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
That's definitely been something beautiful, is seeing, like you said, like things you can walk to, what's in your neighborhood. Like you said, a really cute house, or like in my neighborhood, I live just south of a state forest, and I don't know who's behind it. Maybe it's gnomes, maybe it's fairies, but all of these tiny like houses built from sticks are now on the hiking trail where I go every day. It's amazing. And new ones pop up every day. But yeah, so, and you have some, speaking of appreciating where you're from and where you're around, you have some big life changes on the horizon.
Yeah, that's true. Kate is in a program at Pitt, a clinical and developmental psychology program. And like a doctor needs to do a residency, in order to finish her program, she has to do an internship. And she got matched at OHSU, which is in Portland. Yeah. So that's in Portland, Oregon.
I'm excited about that.
Yeah, I'm very excited. Since I've been spending more time at home lately, I've been spending some time just seeing what's, like we've been talking about, like exploring what's within a mile or so of where I live. I've been spending a lot of time on like Google Earth, looking at Portland and some areas that are really close to Portland, and starting to get excited about what will hopefully be, my new backyard. We haven't heard anything from OHSU yet, but fingers are crossed that there won't be any changes, and we'll still be out there. The plan is to move out in July, and her program starts in the beginning of August.
Oh, great. That's so exciting.
Yeah.
What a big shift.
Yeah, I spent a summer living in Boulder, Colorado, but aside from that summer, I've spent a lot of time traveling out west, but not Washington and Oregon. They're just so far away. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to spending a little bit of time. We're not sure how long we'll be living out there, but it'll be fun to explore a new part of the country.
Yeah, definitely. So what do you think you might, not to make you sad, but what do you think you'll miss about Pittsburgh? Like, what do you encourage people in Pennsylvania to take advantage of while we're here?
Oh, well, there's really so much.
Other than, was it Spice Island Tea House? Seems like a place you should take advantage of.
Oh, totally. I love Spice Island Tea House.
Amazing.
They have this dessert that will knock your socks off. It's one of my favorite desserts in the whole city. It's a coconut cake, and it gets served with a scoop of coconut ice cream that's made by Dave and Andy's, which is right down the street.
Oh, that's amazing.
Oh, it's so good. I'm definitely going to miss some of the special things like that. And also the people, I've got some really close friends here, and I'll miss a lot of those people. But yeah, one of the things that I've done in the past 5 years, my second set of 5 years living in Pittsburgh, like I mentioned before, I've spent a lot more time exploring like North Park and Harrison Hills Park, and the parks that are within 45 minutes or an hour or so of Pittsburgh. When I was here as an undergrad in Pitt, I spent a lot more time driving down to Seneca and the New. And this, for whatever reason, the past 5 years, I've been spending more time in the local, like McConnell's Mill is 45 or so minutes away. And I've been spending a lot more time in places like that. I'm actually doing an interview with someone tomorrow, and one of my questions for him is sort of similar. He's a climber, and I have a question for him about like what climbing destinations are sort of near and dear to your heart. And there are some like that around here to me, because this is like where I learned how to climb. And yeah, like, I mean, living in Lexington was awesome, and having the Red River Gorge in my backyard basically was fantastic. It's one of the best sport climbing destinations in the world. But there are spots around Pittsburgh where I learned how to climb, and they're not world-class destinations, but to me, they're really special destinations, and I'll remember them forever because those are the places where I learned how to rock climb.
Yeah, that's incredible. Would you like to tell us a little bit about what Ascend is for folks who don't know? And yeah, maybe just tell us a little bit about what Ascend is and what they do and how they've been adapting in this time as well.
Sure, yeah. So Ascend is a climbing gym. We actually now have 2 locations. Yeah,
Sorry.
our first location is in the old Duquesne Brewing facility in the South Side. Well, part of the Duquesne Brewing facility. It's right next. If you're familiar with Pittsburgh at all, there's the Birmingham Bridge. If you're coming across the Birmingham Bridge from like Oakland, from Pitt or Duquesne's campus, and coming across the Birmingham Bridge, you're kind of looking at this like clock building. It's a taller building for the South Side, and it has a big clock on it. And Ascend is a climbing gym and fitness facility that's right next to that building. That's sort of a landmark that we're right next to. But yeah, so we're a climbing and fitness facility. There's a lot of bouldering in our gym. We do have some top roping. It's fairly short. It's about 25 feet tall. And then we also have fitness and yoga. We have a full yoga studio with a full yoga program and an incredible yoga staff. Same with our fitness staff, full fitness staff with early morning workouts and evening workouts. And again, an incredible fitness staff. In November of 2019, we acquired a small bouldering facility in Youngstown, Ohio.
Wow.
Yeah, so that's now our second location. And one of my big tasks there when we acquired it was getting retail outfitted in that gym. They had some retail, but it was pretty limited and fairly small. Yeah, so we knocked a wall down and put it's still small, but it's substantially larger than what was in the gym before. So we have a nice retail shop in that gym now, and that was one of the main projects that I had when we took that gym over. But yeah, so that's what Ascend is. And how we've been coping with all of this. I mean, honestly, it's been difficult. Like, if you're a fitness facility, people come into your facility to work out. And when you have to close your doors because, it'd be common on Thursday. It'd be common on a Thursday at this time to walk into Ascend and there'd be 100 or more people. So yeah, we made the tough decision, but we closed our doors on March 15th. And we have been closed since then, obviously. But the way that we've been coping is we've still been working hard, and we've been trying to put a lot of content online. We created what we're calling Ascend to Go. And, and yeah, it's like fitness and yoga classes that we're posting on YouTube. And anyone has access to them, and you can watch them and do yoga with our amazing yoga staff, do fitness classes with our amazing fitness class. You can find some videos on there of me teaching from a home setup how to build top rope anchors and clean top rope anchors for climbing.
Wow.
The thought was like, when I say we are encouraging people not to climb outside right now, that is not coming from Ascend. That message is coming from the Southwest PA Climbers Coalition, the nonprofit. But yeah, like, a lot of people are spending a lot of time inside right now. and not everyone has the ability to build a home wall in a garage or in a basement. Hangboards right now are very hot items. They're they're sold out in a lot of places. We set up. This has been one of my main tasks since we closed on March 15th. We set up an online shop, which I linked to in the beginning of the chat. But yeah, I set up an online shop, and we've been selling hangboards like hotcakes.
Wow.
It's one of the more popular things that we've been selling. But yeah, like people are adapting and figuring out ways to still like practice climbing techniques from the home, and that looks different than when you go into the gym and practice climbing techniques from in the gym. So yeah, if you find the Ascend to Go stuff either through our website or through our YouTube channel, you can find a pretty lengthy video. Actually, it's like almost 40 minutes of me teaching how to build anchors and clean anchors. But I'm doing it from the back of like my dining room chair.
Fantastic. Yeah, and I think we're all finding ways to adapt and dedicate ourselves to the things that we love to do, even from indoors. So I guess I want to ask you, like, is there anything that you need, like anything that you would want to call upon a larger community to help with? Anything you want to like point us to?
Well, I think that being aware of what's going on right now is important. I think that's probably the number one thing, because like I think that what could help most businesses right now, not just Ascend, but like any small business or not small business, is to be able to open again. You know, like the way that we're serving people is way different, and it's challenging. And certainly if we could just open our doors and go back to running the business the way that we were before, that would probably be the easiest. So I think just being aware of what's going on, and understanding that, you know, like we can take a page out of other countries' books on how they've been handling this, and how they've been, you know, flattening the curve, as everyone's been saying. But it takes some discipline, and that discipline is like not moving around. It's kind of staying at home and finding different ways to occupy yourselves. But maybe a little bit more tangible in the short term, because that's probably still several weeks down the road. But yeah, Ascend specifically, if you check out our shop online and support us that way, it'd also be great if you could support us by going online and like buying a gift card, something that you can use in the future when we can reopen again, and also take advantage of the programming that we're putting out there. You know, we are working hard to put stuff on YouTube and stuff like that, and it would be a shame to put all this time and effort into like putting a shop up on Shopify and putting videos on YouTube for them to not get utilized. So I guess I would just encourage people to utilize the stuff that we're putting out there.
Yeah, that's great advice. And I think that's advice for supporting, you know, any local small business that you care about and want to see succeed through all this. I know a lot of people are struggling, and so sometimes that's not always available, but, you know, I think there are tons of ways that you can show support to your community, your local businesses, etc. And that's a really good example of that. Speaking of local businesses, one of my favorites is rolling pepperoni. Have you ever had a pepperoni roll, Todd?
Yeah, I sure have. I have them fairly often, because when Ascend is open, we always have them in our fridge at the front desk. And so yeah, if I have worked a long day and I didn't bring enough food, because I'm a pretty big eater, but I'll frequently like grab a pepperoni roll from the gym and eat it on my way home, or Mondays, we usually have a run club at Ascend. We obviously haven't been doing that since we closed. But it's fairly common for me to eat a pepperoni roll at like 5:30 before run club happens at 6. Yeah, they're super tasty and not so filling that when I go for my run at 6, I'm like, oh man, I wish I hadn't had that pepperoni roll. It's just the right amount of food to to get me through my run, get me home for dinner, sustain me for a few hours there, at the end of the workday.
That's great to hear. And
Yeah.
I want to take this time to kind of open up to questions for everybody who's here. So if anyone has any questions, you can turn your microphone on. You can put it in the chat. Someone asked, is it raining where you are?
It was when I was out on the porch, it started pouring, but it looks like that has passed. Yeah, it's been pretty stormy. Like, I don't know if it stormed last night, but 2 nights ago it stormed enough that I know I woke up in the middle of the night. Kate woke up in the middle of the night. Yeah, there's been some like pretty serious storms. But yeah, right now, currently, I think that the rain has stopped.
Awesome. Anyone else have any questions for Todd while we're here? Could be about hikes. Oh yeah, Kat, go for it.
Hi, Todd. I was curious, because pollution is down, and like you said, there's a plant growing on a route where there wouldn't have been. Do you think going forward, as we all begin to move around outside, you'll move around with a different attitude or a different perspective to sort of preserve the decrease in pollution and the nature that's been allowed to come out of hiding, sort of?
Yeah, I think that's a really great question and a really good point that you're bringing up, because I think a lot of what we do can be selfish. Like why do I run? I run because I want to. Or why do I climb? I climb because it's fun and I want to. But yeah, I do think that hopefully this will bring a little bit of an awareness to just like how heavy our footprint is. And like I'm certainly gonna start climbing again when I'm able to, and when everything settles down a little bit. But I think that I'll do it with, I'll just try to be a little bit more delicate. Like I'll be a little bit more aware of where I place my pack. I'll be a little bit more aware of like dragging my rope through, from one route to another. Maybe I won't drag it. I'll pick it up and walk it from one route to another. But yeah, just learning right now, seeing, like you said, seeing these new plants and things pop up that we haven't seen before. Just learning to still appreciate nature, but maybe go into it with a little bit more of a delicate footprint.
That's a good point. That's the little things, the dragging, the picking up, the placing of the packs.
Yeah, and I'm a big fan of like the American Alpine Club and the Access Fund, and they would preach similar things, and things like some things are kind of simple. Like if you pull up to a parking lot and it's packed with cars, maybe just go somewhere else, like find a different crag to go to, or don't overcrowd a parking lot and then go into a crag and overcrowd a crag just because that's what you want to do today. Be flexible with your plans. I think I maybe saw another question come in, possibly in the.
You did. Carol, would you like to say this out loud? I'm sorry, Mrs. Schuler, maybe? Oh.
There. No, you should call me Carol, please. Yes, I've never climbed. I do Pilates and I, walk a lot. And I didn't think I could ever do Pilates, and now I can. And I'm just wondering, what do you say to people who have never climbed before, and they just want to, do it for exercise. They don't want to climb Seneca Rocks or really endanger themselves. They would like to try it. Where should they begin, and how can they begin without hurting themselves in terms of like muscles or? It looks like a pretty rigorous sport.
Yeah, it is on the one hand, but on the other hand, it's kind of a delicate sport. It requires a lot of balance and technique and footwork, and a lot of times, actually, like men and women will find a difference when they get into climbing, because men tend to have more upper body strength and they can muscle their way through things, but women tend to rely more on technique and their footwork. So there are, climbing is really a sport for everyone. At Ascend specifically, I remember this one time a woman came in, and I forget her name or her age exactly, but I want to say that she was in like maybe her 70s or maybe even in her 80s, and she had never climbed before, and she was just like, hey, this seems kind of cool. Like, I want to tick this off my bucket list. Yeah, it was super cool, and she did. We have pictures of it somewhere. I think we've posted pictures of her before on our Instagram that you can probably find. But yeah, I think a gym is a great place to start. Like I mentioned, at Ascend specifically, we have some fairly short walls with ropes. They're like 25 feet tall. And the rope is kind of nice. Yeah, there's a little bit of a hurdle with like learning how to tie your knots and learning how to put on a harness. But most gyms will offer, like an hour or so long introductory class to teach you sort of the basics. But I think that I like to recommend people to top rope if they are kind of scared about injuring themselves, because on a top rope, you really, as long as you're doing it correctly, you're really never like putting yourself in a position where you can fall and hurt yourself like badly. Like with bouldering, climbing without a rope, when you boulder, you maybe only climb 10 or 15 feet off the ground, but twisted ankles or even broken ankles are fairly common with bouldering. But you can put a harness on and climb fairly easy terrain with a rope on. And you had mentioned Seneca Rocks. There's actually some really easy rock climbs that you can do to get to the top of Seneca Rocks. And some of the popular ones are actually called, one is called Old Man's and one is called Old Ladies. And they're really
Watch yourself there, Todd.
Huh?
So you watch yourself.
But yeah, they're like fairly introductory level of routes, and you can climb them all the way to the top of Seneca. I would maybe recommend hiring a guide and doing it with a guide, but if you don't want to invest in a guide, you could go to a climbing gym and still experience it and climb easy routes and have a fun exercise and a fun new experience, and the risk is really fairly low.
Nice. So this is kind of our we're starting to come to the end of the evening. Does anyone else have any questions that Zaheen has one.
Yeah, I think I saw one more pop in.
Zaheen, do you want to ask this? That's fine.
Sure.
Woo!
So I'm going to say what I wrote. Hi, Todd. Sorry if you already talked about this and I missed it. I noticed in Pittsburgh, especially, a lot of the athletic and sport communities are pretty tight-knit. Have you noticed ways in which the climbing community has come together to support each other through this strange time?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Because it's like me personally speaking, like the only person that I've seen that I know is my girlfriend. So I feel like it can be kind of difficult right now to actually like make new connections and sort of like network and find that niche. which seems like sort of like what you're getting at. But I think like right now, for example, I think this is great. Like we've never met before, and here we are, you know, having a conversation. So maybe just like I don't know of anything specifically, but I think in general, just tuning in, because lots of people are doing things like these chats that we're having right now. And rather than getting complacent and just like watching Netflix, which admittedly I've been doing a fair bit of, but yeah, like do things like what we're doing right now and make new connections. By the way, nice to meet you.
Yeah, I think it's really important to recognize there's a time to find the ways that we can support each other, you know, whether that's just checking in and saying hello. You know, there is a time to relax and maybe just kind of watch Netflix sometimes too. But I think this is a time where we really need to make it clear to ourselves and to each other how we move forward as a community and how we support each other. And I've seen so many beautiful examples of that. So
one of the
yeah.
things that I've been doing personally is I've been reaching out to a lot of you know, old friends that I've sort of fell out of touch with. I've been doing a lot of that, just like thinking about people that I interacted with 5 years ago, and where was I 5 years ago, and what was I doing, and who was I hanging out with then, and reconnecting with those people. And that's been kind of nice.
Yeah, definitely. The last time I asked you this question was about a year ago, and this is going to be our last question before we have a beautiful song by Noah Rechtenwald.
I can't wait for that, by the way.
Oh my God, I'm so excited. Oh my God. We have decided that we're going to end each week with a song, and Todd chose this song specifically for all of us to hear. So as you're getting excited, Todd, I'm wondering if you can answer for us our last question. Traditionally, what is Appalachia?
This is a good question. I think that when we talked about this the last time, I think that I brought up the whole like West Coast versus East Coast thing.
Yeah.
and yeah, there's this. You can find these YouTube videos if you, I think in YouTube, all that you need to search to find them is search Beast Coast, like B-E-A-S-T, Beast Coast. Yeah, Appalachia to me is this like, it's beautiful, but it's this ruggedness, you know, like Shenandoah and Seneca and, you know, the Smoky Mountains in Tennessee. Yeah, it's different than the West Coast. It maybe doesn't have like the snowy mountains of like Rocky Mountain National Park and the Pacific Northwest, Mount Hood, which I am getting excited about. But yeah, there's still these like beautiful mountains, and it's rugged and it's difficult. Like Appalachia, man, it's hard. Like I love to trail run as well as climb, and the trail runs that are here are really hard. They're technical and rocky, but then they have these like beautiful vistas and these beautiful waterfalls that you'll find along the way. One of my favorite trail runs that I've ever done, it's a race in World's End State Park, which is about an hour from where I grew up. It's in Sullivan County in Pennsylvania. And the race that I did is the 100K version of the race, and I've done it twice now, but it's just so beautiful. Like one moment you're in the thick of the woods, the next moment you're running alongside of a gorgeous like big pond, the next moment there's this big vista that comes out of nowhere, and then the next moment you're by a creek that leads you to a waterfall. And it's really pretty and definitely holds a special place in my heart.
Yeah, I'm so glad to hear that. Excited for your new ventures, but also I know that you'll hold it in your heart. this wildness, right?
Definitely, yeah, definitely. And I still have family that lives in Pennsylvania and lots of friends. And I won't get too into the woods in this. I'm ready to wrap things up and hear this song, which I've been binging. And Kat, I think maybe since I mentioned it, you've been binging it a little bit now too.
Oh yeah, and Kat has, and I think your Jacqueline has. Like since you suggested it to us, I was like, oh,
it's so good. But anyways, yeah, I won't get too into this, but I am working on finding my way with what I do career-wise. But what I'm working on should bring me back to the area quarterly, once every quarter. So I look forward to staying connected, and although I might be in Portland, I'll still be back often, and looking forward to those moments.
Oh, fantastic! Yeah, and you got to get your fill of pepperoni rolls.
Totally. Yeah.
So, Noah, how you feeling?
Check 1 2.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can hear you. So this is Noah Rechtenwald. He's a professional musician. If you're looking to hire one, you do lessons as well, right?
Yeah, I do lessons. They're all on Zoom right now, but yeah, Skype, whatever.
All right.
You can do it.
Hey, Noah, what's behind you? That's a gorgeous looking instrument.
The piano?
Yeah, but
the piano, or you mean the rain stick?
It's just exposed, and like the piano that I had in my house growing up didn't quite look like this.
Yeah, I'm in the process of tuning it, but I haven't quite gotten there yet. So
got it.
I'll work on it. So this is, how do you pronounce her name?
I don't know how to say the band's name, but the
Rocchi?
I think it's Waxahachie, yeah.
Katie
Waxahachie
is her name.
Hey, Kate. I was gonna see if Kate wanted to come in, but she's on the phone in the other room. But she has also been binging this song with me, so I thought that she might appreciate this. But I'll just make her watch the recording later.
Yeah, I was gonna say the recording will be available. Kat has edited it onto Instagram, and I think it's available on YouTube as well.
Cool.
I'm looking forward to this rendition. I'm ready.
Right.
Yes.
Oh my word! Oh wow! Thank you so much, Noah. Thank you so much, Todd, Kat, Jacqueline, everybody who's here tonight. Thank you for sharing this time together. It means a lot, and I'm so excited that we're all here and able to engage together. Yeah, it's been lovely.
Thank you all so much, and Noah, thank you. That was so good.
Wow, my heart!
Yeah.
Good suggestion. Thanks for the suggestion.
Yeah.
What a love song.
I know, it's so good.
Beautiful. Well, we'll be here next week, 5 p.m. I think our guest next week, if I'm allowed to say, is Appalachia. If you haven't heard of them, they're two dudes who are going to talk to us, and they run a podcast. So I'm excited to hear from them. Who knows what music we might have on. But yeah, come by the porch next time, 5 p.m. every Thursday. Yeah, thanks so much.